So, Link's crossbow training. Bet you didn't think I was going to cover this one, huh? And really, I get why, because who really cares about Link's crossbow training? It's a game that actually began its life as a sequel or more of a side story to Twilight Princess, which at the time was seen as the pinnacle of the Zelda series, but then slowly throughout the development process, it morphed into the concept that we know of today. It went from a follow-up to one of the most talked about games in the entire series, to a glorified tech demo designed to sell a hunk of plastic for the Nintendo Wii. And having a game be a tech demo is fine, but in my opinion, there are really two types of tech demos that we can talk about here. We have games that are full experiences first, and were designed to showcase the capabilities of the hardware that they were running on or utilizing second. I think of things like Super Mario 64, Pikmin, Crysis, basically all of Valve's catalog, or Ocarina of Time, Phantom Hourglass, or Skyward Sword to keep things a little bit more Zelda-centric. And then you have games that are really bare bones with their main or only real purpose was to show off the hardware that they were being played on. I'm talking about things like Aperture Desk Job, Duck Hunt, Wii Sports Resort, Wii Fit, Wii Play, basically anything with Wii at the beginning of the title that tried to sell you an unnecessary peripheral. And while Link's crossbow training didn't have Wii in the title, it did come bundled in with something that you could always try to sell at a garage sale 5 years after you first bought it, so I think it fits firmly in that second camp. So yeah, today we're looking at one of the strangest entries in the Zelda franchise, and if I could be a bit blunt, probably also the worst game outside of the CDI Zeldas, of course. And I will say, that says a lot more about the overall consistency of the series at large, rather than a lack of quality here, because I do think there is still fun to be had with Link's crossbow training. Unfortunately, just not a whole lot of it because, well, you'll see. Let me start off by saying that Link's crossbow training isn't necessarily bad. It just isn't really a whole lot of anything in the first place. This is a light gun shooter, much like House of the Dead or Time Crisis, where you take control of Link from Twilight Princess, and you play through several shooting galleries of ever-increasing difficulty. Everything here is taken directly from Twilight Princess on both an audio and visual front, which while some might view as a little lazy, given the nature of this game, reusing assets really makes no difference to me. So the main gameplay gimmick relies on using this, the Wii Zapper. This is essentially a plastic shell for your Wiimote and nunchuck to sit in, so you can have it be in the shape of a gun, or in this case, a crossbow. It really doesn't change the functionality of the controller outside of the way you hold it, the fact that you tuck the nunchuck cord away, and you have a slightly larger B button to press as a trigger, but that's about it. It's like maybe a step up from the Wii wheel in terms of what it actually adds, but it's definitely not as game-changing as something like the Wii Motion Plus that came out later on. At least it's a little bit better than those attachments that you would add to your Wiimote for Wii Sports. Did anyone else buy these things? Anyways. I will say, holding the peripheral in this way does make this game fun. You could technically play the game without it, but it's almost like playing Guitar Hero or Rock Band without the guitar itself. You're really missing out on the intended experience by using a more traditional controller. Well, you know, as traditional as the Wiimote and Nunchuck combo was, I guess. So the main mode in this game will have Link move through 9 levels, each with 3 acts, and a score-related medal in order to unlock later levels. The threshold for these levels is honestly pretty forgiving. In fact, you can essentially ensure that you get the point requirements by doing one thing, making sure that you only shoot if you're hitting something that gives you points. You get a point multiplier for getting additional consecutive hits, and when you miss, that multiplier resets back down to 1. It's a pretty common system in these types of games, and it shows up okay here, except for the few times that you're faced to fight a horde of enemies and are given some occasional power-ups that give Link a fully automatic mode, which unless you're supremely lucky or you can use your ammo sparingly, going fully automatic will lose that point multiplier pretty easily. So you have a choice to make. Do you use the fun power-up you get, or do you ignore it so you actually have a better chance of clearing the level? It's honestly not that fun of a decision to make, since most of the time you're just going to choose to not use the power-up, since you're probably just going to end up losing the level if you do. It seems like there wasn't really that much thought put into what went into stuff like this. Like, why do I have the option of charging up a bomb arrow? It's situationally useful, I suppose, in an instance where enemies are piled up, but it takes way too long to actually charge, and it doesn't really have that big enough of a blast radius to make it worth it. And then you have the pots and scarecrows that you can shoot for extra points. And you could do this if you want, but they're really only worth a fraction of the main targets, and your point multipliers don't affect them at all, so it never really felt worth going after these optional objectives, unless you were really shooting for a high rank, which I don't really see much of an incentive for since you pass the level just by achieving the lowest rank possible anyways. On the plus side, the levels themselves are pretty fun for the most part. You'll shoot at plenty of targets, enemies from the main game, Goron's crotches, okay, and there are even a couple of boss fights that are honestly a little bit better than you might expect. There are actually 3 different gameplay styles here too. You have your standard target shooting level where Link will just be in a static position while you aim your bow. Then there are the defender levels, which will have Link rotate in a circle as he defends a central point from enemies. And finally, we have these ranger levels. These sections will actually allow Link to move freely in these third-person shooter / Gears of War ripoff segments. And I say that, but I actually think that these are some of the best levels in the game, simply because of the greater level of control. I kind of would have liked to see the whole game be based off this, not gonna lie. But, yeah, that's really it. That's all Link's Crossbow training has to offer. I mean, you have a multiplayer mode if you want, where you and up to 4 friends can try to beat each other's scores, but can you imagine convincing 3 other people to install Dolphin to do this? Or hell, could you even conceive of the thought of inviting 3 people you care about over to your house to play Link's Crossbow training for the Wii in the year of 2025? I don't think so. Very brief video today, but I mean, that's all I really have to say about this game. Is it bad? No. Link's Crossbow training honestly does what it sets out to do incredibly well. It's just that what it amounts to doing is something that had its place in time, and it's a game that really doesn't serve that much of a purpose anymore. It is a rehashed asset flip of Twilight Princess that was designed to convince you that you need more peripherals for the Wii. Nothing more, nothing less. Is it fun? Well, kind of, but I can't really say it's any more fun than House of the Dead or Time Crisis or, hell, that deer shooting game that you can go to Dave & Buster's or Buffalo Wild Wings and play after you had a few drinks with your friends. It doesn't really add much to the Zelda franchise outside of being a cliff note on the series' Wikipedia page, and I really just see little reason to go back to this one when you can beat the whole game in about an hour tops. It's because of this that I can't really recommend playing Link's Crossbow training unless you are supremely, supremely curious. Look, at the time of the release, I totally see the vision here, but that age has long, long since passed, and Link's Crossbow training has no real space in the modern day. Could they remaster this for the Switch? Probably. Will they? Almost assuredly not.